Stephen A. Smith, who loves to prod and poke and kind of really come at people, said he didn't give a you know what about Russell Westbrook having a 30 point, 20 assists, 10 plus rebound, triple double, because the Wizards are so atrocious. And it kind of brings up this conversation as to what kind of player Russell Westbrook is. So, what were your thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah. Stephen A is he's in a segment of sports where controversy is applauded in a sense, creating controversy because it gets clicks, it gets watches, it gets people to read your articles and to tune in. So I kind of take what he says with a grain of salt. But he essentially said that Westbrook's numbers last night mean nothing to me because even though that's great numbers, that's what Westbrook can do. We all know this. And he went into Russ's career and essentially said that even though he's an MVP, he's averaged a triple double for the last couple seasons, that none of it means anything because A, he said that he can't shoot, and B, he also said that he hasn't won a championship. So he essentially said that he was insinuating that all of his accomplishments don't mean as much or don't mean anything because he hasn't won on that level. And the reason that he hasn't won on that level, he was insinuating, is that because he hasn't developed a 3-point shot. So for me, I just wanted to talk about Russ because he is the most divisive player in basketball right now, skill wise, not in terms of his personality off the court or anything, but just in terms of his game. He's the most divisive player in the NBA. And I think he kind of speaks to the times that we're in currently, where we are way more focused on criticizing athletes than building them up. Like if you can take like the Michael Jordan versus LeBron argument. LeBron, for all intents and purposes, has been scot-free in terms of his personal life. He has no marks on him, never been arrested, anything like that. Family man by all accounts, scot-free. But Michael Jordan, who has had some personal issues in terms of gambling or issues with his teammates, and if you look at the way that they're perceived, they come up in different eras. But Michael Jordan is almost universally beloved by everyone.
Yeah.
But LeBron is consistently critiqued. People want to bring up the finals record. People want to bring up his choices in terms of free agency. But it speaks to the different eras that we're in, because back when Michael Jordan played, it was way more acceptable to build athletes up as these role models, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
As opposed to nitpicking their every move. So if Jordan were to play now, his perception would be a lot different than it was now, than it was back then, excuse me. So if you want to look at Russ, his perception right now is largely negative. And if you want to look at a similar player, you can take an Allen Iverson, who was largely inefficient, but doesn't necessarily get some of the critiques about his game that Russ gets right now.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it kind of brings up this argument, because Allen Iverson is a beloved basketball player for everything that he did. He obviously had his issues with the media in terms of his public image, but his game wasn't really called into question as much as Russ's is. So I just wanted to kind of cape for Russ a little bit, to be honest. I think he deserves it, because I think that Russell Westbrook is everything that we say we want in a player. He's a great teammate by all accounts. Paul George, Bradley Beal, and Steven Adams have all called him their favorite teammate. He's exciting to watch. He's a freak athlete. He's one of the most elite finishers in the NBA. He's giving 110% every night, every single possession. Listen, man, as a Bulls fan, if you could put Russell Westbrook's brain in Lauri Markkanen's body, we probably have like a Dirk-like player, because Russ's effort level every night, it goes without question. So I just think that we need to be more appreciative of what he's doing on the court night in, night out. Yes, he is flawed. He doesn't have a great jump shot. He makes questionable decisions sometimes, but I think we focus way more on his faults than his achievements as a player. So I just wanted to take a second to give him his flowers, and without, tearing him down at a consistent basis like every other media outlet does, it seems like.
Yeah. So I understand your cape for him. And to be honest, I am, a pretty big Russell Westbrook fan in terms of just appreciating everything he's done in the league. I remember there was a point in time where I was really getting sick and tired of the Knicks. And I was like, you know what, Oklahoma City, you're my dark horse from now on. Back when they had, KD, and they were still coming up in the West and trying to really make a name for themselves. And I always appreciated Russell Westbrook's dog, his energy, his everything. And so I do think that there is a level of unappreciation that he gets. But at the same time, I think that there's two levels I want to talk about this from. The NBA as a whole was a growing organization in the 90s, and it was MJ who really helped propel them to become a global kind of a global entity where everybody in the world knew who Michael Jordan was. It didn't matter where you were. And everybody knew who the Chicago Bulls were, and number 23 and the logo, the Jumpman logo, all of that. And so the NBA was really in a point where they needed to push Michael Jordan, and he needed to be a positive force. But even back then, people still question, Michael Jordan's character and his off-court antics, because what the media loves to do is create an arc of a rise, and then once you're at the top, they love to kind of tear you down along the way and criticize you, and question whether or not you can continue to be as great as you have been. And so much so to the point that Michael Jordan retired partially because of the immense heat that he got on him. So no superstar is without their fair share of criticism. Bringing that back to the NBA nowadays, it's the same thing. We love to kind of talk about the rise and ascent of players, but once players hit a certain point, the expectations become championship or bust. It becomes, are you able to win that gold jacket? Are you able to win that, that Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl trophy? Are you able to win that NBA championship, MVP ring, etc.? And I think for Russ, we were all enamored by his doggedness when he was riding with KD and James Harden, and him not trying to be Batman and to KD Superman, and like, no, I got this too, watch me do my thing. And we celebrated him when he started averaging a triple-double, saying like, oh wow, this is stuff I've never seen before. He's an incredible player, incredible athlete, making up all these numbers, and etc. And then once that started to not show results, and he gets first round exits both without KD that first season. We gave him a pass. He gets Paul George, gets another first round exit, and then once they get traded to Houston, that doesn't go as expected. Now he's in Washington, putting up the same numbers and seeing even less results. We start at some point, although he's an incredible individual athlete, the expectations that we have, they continue to ascend. And so when athletes aren't able to meet those expectations, and they're not able to kind of progress in a way where we see, okay, year over year, we expect you to get better. He was flirting with averaging a triple-double. He averages a triple-double. We give him an MVP, and we're like, yo, he's amazing. He's the greatest. He's this, that, and the third. But we still have more and more expectations. As an athlete gets better, we still expect you to get better as well. As time goes on, we expect you to learn from your mistakes and try to get better. So when we see kind of the stagnation, I think we get accustomed to a certain level of greatness, and we start to question like, okay, can you be better? If not,
is
then it's
that
time to start
fair
tearing you
though?
down.
That's my thing. I don't I don't think that's completely fair. Like, I think
Mm,
that Russell Westbrook has maximized his potential. Like, I
mm,
don't think that everyone is going to be able to shoot 35+% from three every year. That's just not, I just don't think that's how it works. I'm sure Russ works on his jump shot as much as he works as every other on every other part of his game, but he's just, he has a particular, he's Liam Neeson. He got a particular set of skills. Like, that's what he does,
yeah.
but I just think it's unfair to place the blame on him continually, because I think that it's happened throughout his entire career. Because coming into the NBA, it was a shock that he even got picked as high as he did, because at UCLA, like, a lot of people didn't even think he was an NBA player. So to go from where
Mm,
he was then to where he is now is kind of phenomenal. But once, like you said, they started to win a little bit more, those expectations started to get placed on him. So it's like, I think at every stop they've nitpicked him and questioned like what his role is in their losses without looking at the team as a whole. Like, when he was with Kevin Durant, it was always about what is Russell Westbrook doing to hold Kevin Durant back, rather
mm,
than what is Russell Westbrook doing to help Kevin Durant. Because they went up 3-1 on the Warriors, the 73-9 team, and then they just lost. They didn't have enough shooting. And part of that, I don't think, is on Russ necessarily. He's not a good shooter, but it's on the front office to surround him and KD with good shooters. And that just didn't necessarily happen.
mm.
And I think that people have this notion that he takes shots from other players when that's been disproven. Like, KD and Paul George both had MVP level seasons when Russ was their point guard.
Yeah,
Paul George had the best season of his career playing with Russ.
yeah,
So it's like, I just think that there's this notion that he's not a winning player or he's not affecting winning in a positive way, when realistically, man, only one team every year hoists that championship. One.
yeah,
And I think that we do this thing where we devalue players based on them winning championships, when not that many players win them and not that many teams do. Charles Barkley does not have a ring. uh Karl Malone, Steve Nash, uh Allen
hello,
Iverson, Tracy McGrady, like,
Carmelo.
the Melo, yeah. And it doesn't make them any less of a great player. It just means that either they didn't have the roster around them at the time, or they had one chance and it just didn't happen for them. Or you see it with players like Dirk Nowitzki, where his whole career up until he won in 2011, there were questions about his toughness and his ability to win. But once he won, it was like magic. He suddenly
Mm,
started moving up the rankings in terms of greatest players just because he won that championship.
yeah,
When on the other side, LeBron hadn't gotten a championship yet, and he had his worst performance in the playoffs, and people piled on him because of his performance. It's like it's a double-edged coin, I guess I should say, or a double-edged sword in a way, because you have winning
yeah,
on one end and losing on the other, and that's just the way that it works. I just don't think that we need to evaluate players solely by their ability or solely by their championship count, because we're going to get to the end of Russ's career and then we're going to want to say, oh wow, Russ was really good. We're
yeah,
going to look at his basketball reference page and be like, damn, like, this dude was doing it. But it's like, it's going to be too late. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, in a sense. And I think that I think we just kind of grow complacent, and we again get accustomed to excellence. And I don't think it is fair, but that's human nature. It's human nature to strive for greatness, and then once you get to a certain mountaintop, you're looking like, oh, all right, I'm here. Okay, there's that next mountain peak, I guess, and I think I'm going to put my flag here and try to get to that next mountaintop.
Right.
That's what we seek for. That's what we aspire to. And so when you get to a certain level of greatness, it's like, okay, more and more greatness. Let's see this next mountain that you can climb. And because Russ, in terms of his career arc, has kind of hit this point where MVP stats, passing Oscar Robertson in terms of triple doubles and stuff like that. It's he has had such an incredible career. I think that we do appreciate Russ, and we do appreciate his contributions to the game and how he's been such a force to be reckoned with. But at the end of the day, we do become complacent with greatness and sustain excellence at a certain level. And it's a sport where at the end of the day, all the greats and all the best players are measured to the same standard. Can you win a championship? Were you able to win a championship? It's not the only metric, but it is a big metric that we as the fans have grown accustomed to judging players by. You know, if Russ has his own definition of success, I'm all for that. You know, have your definition, and as long as you're able to, like, you know, be happy with your accomplishments, I think that's the most important thing. But as a fan of the sport, that's kind of what the nature of it is. And yeah.
Yeah. Nah, I see what you're saying, man. But for me, I guess personally, I think that it's okay for players to see those mountaintops and plant those flags. But I feel like it gets a little weird with fans for me, like
Mm,
where we're placing our own expectations of this particular player on them, you know?
yeah.
Like who am I, you know, a guy that doesn't play the game, and even if I did, wouldn't play it on the level that Russ does. Who am I to criticize him and say that he hasn't done enough? You
Mm,
know, when by and large he's had a successful career. You
yeah.
know, I think that if you look at somebody like let's say a Derrick Rose who couldn't, you know, really fulfill his career because of injuries, like I'm sure he would have loved to have the career that Russ had. You know,
Mm,
but I think we look at Russ and we expect him to have the career that Steph has, you
mm,
know, when he hasn't
yeah.
necessarily had the teams that Steph has had.
Yeah. I don't know. A part of me still disagrees to some aspect, because at the end of the day, Steph, guys like Rose, guys like Steph, guys like Chris Paul, guys like Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, those are all his contemporaries. And the guys in that list that have championships to show for it are Kyrie, are Steph, and Steph did it at some point without KD and with KD as well. And so the fact that Russ had KD and had an opportunity, and the team had an opportunity, and that they couldn't make it happen, it's just one of those things where part of the criticism isn't fair, but another part of it kind of is. And as fans, this is what we expect. We expect to be entertained. We love the storylines. We love the drama. And we expect results because we pay for it. We pay for it with our attention. We pay for it with purchasing jerseys. We want to see you do great, and we want to see you win. And we root for you to win. We don't root for you to just be, you know, we root for you to be great. We root for you to be entertaining. And we also root for you to win, you know?
Right. I just think that as far as all of those point guards, man, at the end of Russ's career, or even if we look at all his contemporaries, they're going to be people that tell you that Kyrie Irving is better than Damian Lillard, and they'll be wrong. Go ahead and close it right there.
Okay, bro.